many years in the Silicon Valley. All things blockchain, cryptocurrency, NFTs. More security, more privacy, more individual freedom. The reality is everything having to do with tech is about human connection. "15 years ago, I flew to Manila for the first time. I'll never forget it. It was the longest flight I had been on at that point. At the very beginning of the flight, I spilt an entire cup of water on my computer. And I was on tour for 6 months. So in that moment, as I'm flying to Manila, I'm filled with all this emotion, like my computer's gone. And you have to understand, 15 years ago, there was no smartphones. So like my technical tool was gone and I was on tour for the next 6 months. I remember how much it impacted me when I landed here in the Philippines. The introduction to Filipinos and Filipino culture, not the folks that were in America that I was friends with, but those that are here in their own culture, in their own environment. The way that your culture had made a mark on my life. I remember over the last 15 years, I've often said my favorite place to visit is the Philippines. My favorite culture is the Filipino culture. Today, I'm going to give a keynote that's an introduction to the future of blockchain. I'm going to do my very best to not use terms that you may not be familiar with and to just keep things very simple. Tomorrow, I'll do a keynote that is more of an expert level keynote, really going through the details of where we're at, where we're going. So it'll be two very different talks. I'll also share some stories with you today. Before I get started and I dive in, I brought some gifts. Anybody like gifts? I brought some gifts to give away to some friends. Yeah, if you like gifts? All right, my friend, I will take the gifts, no rush. I brought 4 hats and 5 t-shirts. Now, the t-shirts are very meaningful to me because it's something that I had created for an NFT project in 2020. I decided not to launch that project because I was concerned with how NFTs were becoming an instrument for speculative investing. I was concerned with how NFTs were becoming an instrument for gambling and for money laundering. And I felt like it was in my best interest, in my team's best interest, to take a step back and to just support the industry and let things kind of shake out. So, are there any young Filipinos that would like to rush up to the stage so I can give you a gift? You got to come up. You got to come up right here. Anybody, come on up. Come on up. Those that there you go. Yes, come. No, you too. You too. All right, come on up. Come on up. Yep, right here. So let me hold this for me. Right there. There you go. Okay, so there are 5 t-shirts, and I love this shirt. It's reflective. This was going to be the project that I was going to launch, and I'm going to talk about this, how sometimes we have great ideas that we choose not to move forward on for a reason. So there are 5 t-shirts, and there are 4 hats. Now these hats, why don't you each take a hat? Oh, look, there's a 5th. Okay, you missed a hat, but you got a shirt. Okay, here are 5 shirts. You all can go back down and divide the shirts amongst each other. Head on out. Now, the hats, this hat right here, NFT NYC. Okay, thank you, everybody. You're off the stage. Get out of here. Now, the hats were from 2021. I had the grace of being a part of NFT NYC when it was an idea. I was doing these future of blockchain and future of tech and future of AI events inside of Twitter's headquarters, inside the Innovation Hub, where I was the entrepreneur in residence. And what would happen is I would have hundreds of people come, and always I'd have these amazing keynote speakers. This is 2017 and 18. And my favorite keynote speaker that ever came to be a part of the event was a guy named Jody Rich. Now, Jody Rich is the founder the organizer of NFT NYC. So when he said, hey, Ian, I'm going to start this NFT NYC event, and Alex and Devin from OpenSea are interested, and now you have to understand, OpenSea was like maybe doing $1,000 of volume a day. Like, it was like not really a thing, everybody. Nobody really collected NFTs at that time. It wasn't automated, it was very complicated. So when he said he wanted to do that, I thought, well, I don't like running events. I'm not great at running events. I'd love to be a part of your event. And so that's how I got involved. And I remember our first event in Times Square, New York. We rented the PlayStation Theater. We had more speakers than we had attendees, right? And then the next year, 2020, February, right before the pandemic happened, it was like about the same number of people, but it was very down. Everybody was like kind of like, you know, I remember one friend was very excited. Dirk from Upland. Dirk was like, oh man, I made Monopoly for the blockchain. This is the greatest thing ever. But everybody else was kind of down. They were like, this is not going that well. People are not buying NFTs. The brands don't believe in this. And then to see 18 months later, we never could have anticipated selling 6,000 tickets to our event during the fall of 2021. We made 1,000 of those hats. Now those hats, to the 4 people that got a hat, those hats are NFTs. By the way, I have more hats and more t-shirts I'm bringing tomorrow. But those hats are NFTs. If you scan the badge, then you can drop a digital hat inside of your blockchain wallet, right? So I wanted to introduce physical and digital. It's one of the reasons why I brought the hats, was I wanted to let you know that digital assets, anything having to do with crypto and blockchain, there can be a physical element to it. I mean, there's a lot of people that have these physical Bitcoins that is an actual coin that has a Bitcoin attached to it, or 10 Bitcoin attached to it, right? A physical digital combination have always been in place in this industry. And so if you make merch, if you make toys, if you create anything that's a physical product, think about how could you add a digital element to it. That's the reason why I brought the hats as an example. We made 1,000 of these hats. We never thought we'd have 6,000 people come, so we can only give them to the first 1,000 folks. And so I thought that'd be a fun thing to bring. Now for the other, I brought these t-shirts. Now it looks like a PFP, right? It's a gorilla, but I decided not to launch the project. And I want to start here. A lot of people feel regret for the good moves they didn't make. I'm just not that way. And I would encourage you to not be that way. I would encourage you, when it comes to when you look at like the market and you could have bought this token, you know, for a penny and now it's worth $10, or you look at this NFT project and you could have bought this NFT for, you know, 0.1 ETH and now it's worth 100 ETH, or maybe you're looking at, you know, some sort of musician and the musician has an, you know, some sort of blockchain element, and if only you would have gotten involved earlier, or most importantly, you have an idea, right? You're sitting in your bed and you have this brilliant idea. When I have brilliant ideas, I hear my voice in my head like this, Ian, this is a brilliant idea. And in that moment, you say, okay, I'm gonna do this. This is it. I'm gonna tell the team, I'm gonna get this going. And that gorilla was part of that. And if I would have launched the gorilla back in 2020, I would have been one of the early PFP projects. I made the decision not to do so because I was concerned about where the industry was at. My very first keynote, I've always done the final keynote at NFT NYC, which is a wonderful honor. My very first keynote, I talked about why I loved the blockchain expression in smart contracts because it wasn't about ICOs and speculative investing. So when you see anything that you're about to do in this industry, when you have this amazing idea and you're ready to move forward on it, if there's a gut check, if there's a hesitancy, worst case scenario is you didn't do a good idea. That's the worst thing that happens. But if you don't listen to your gut, if you don't listen to your heart, if you don't listen to this internal clock of kind of guiding your decisions, you could end up doing something that gets you in trouble, right? Like, what if I would have launched that project, I did it wrong, and accidentally I created security, and like, I don't know what maybe could have happened. So I brought that as an example. Now, something I want you to understand is we have this stage here, right? So the stage is to elevate a person so that you can see them. But nobody that comes on the stage is a superstar. Like, there's definitely no rock stars in the blockchain world. If somebody thinks they're a rock star, if they think they're amazing, they're self-deceived. The point of blockchain technology, which is distributed ledger technology, the point of it is to stop centralized power. It's to stop celebrity. It's to stop the rock star mentality. It's to stop this thing where we elevate people. Because we are all equals. I have so much honor and respect for so many of you. I see friends and business partners in the room right now. I love listening to you talk. And so don't be manipulated by people lifted up on a stage. The only reason there's a stage in an environment like this is for the express purpose so the cameras can see us, so it's easy to have us walk around. Now, for my keynote. Just so you know, most of my talks are like 5 minutes long, so we're good. The future of blockchain. So let me explain some things to you. There's a lot of terms that are thrown around. So I'm going to tell you a story. I just did this event at Parliament in the United Kingdom. My friend, the Baron of Shoreditch, Lord Natway, invited me to bring all these Web3 global leaders from all over Europe and Asia and the United States to come to Parliament, to the House of Lords. And we had probably 100 of us that were there. And it was amazing. We spent a few hours together having drinks and food and spending time with one another. And it reminded me of a story that Lord Way told me. He said, Ian, 600 years ago, the House of Lords burnt down. And the reason it burnt down was Great Britain used to keep ledgers on pieces of wood. So there was a time that every nation did not use paper and pen. It wasn't standard. They would use marks. So they marked down your family name and they marked down how much you owe the government. So he said what happened was we switched from carving wood to paper. And when we did that, we had no use for the wood. So we started a fire. Well, the fire got out of control and it burnt down the House of Lords. Now, when we make transitions, when we transition from carving wood to paper, when we transition from paper to servers that are at your house, or from servers at your house to cloud computing, or from cloud computing to decentralized servers, which is blockchain technology, distributed ledger technology. That's what blockchain is. It is distributed servers all over the world with different people that are participating, holding ledgers with a third-party verification, usually through proof of stake or proof of work. And it's a technology to automate that process to make sure that there's, trustworthiness, that things are as they said they would be, that people are held accountable. So we are transitioning from cloud computing being run by Microsoft Azure and Google GCS and Amazon AWS to distributed ledgers. And we have all these layer 1 blockchains that you hear about, Ethereum and Bitcoin, and then you have all these layer 2s that are built on different protocols like Ethereum, right, with Immutable X and Polygon and others. Now, when you look at what happened with the House of Lords, when they transitioned, they burnt down their house on accident. Understand that when things like FTX happen, or when things like, you name a list of things that have gone wrong in the industry, sometimes through nefarious means, and fraud, and sometimes not. It just things went south. It was a miscalculation, and that's the danger of these centralized blockchains. What happened when FTX imploded? Well, a bunch of people's houses got burnt down. Understand, that's not really new. That happens as you transition in technology. A house burning down is terrible. It's devastating. It's heartbreaking. But that does happen. It even happened to Parliament in Great Britain when they made a transition to new technology. So first of all, when you hear all these things and you hear people say things like, oh, this is all going to fall apart, crypto's being set back by 10 years, I don't know if that's true. I think some houses got burnt down, and FTX likely could have been avoided. It does seem as though it was nefarious and fraudulent activity that was going on from what we see up to this point. But sometimes it's just a miscalculation. And so when you look at when you survey things and you say, okay, is this a safe thing to be involved with? No, if you want safety, go do some farming and ask yourself, is farming safe? Most crops don't even get to the harvest. If you want safety, why don't you go buy some real estate? And then ask yourself, is it safe for me to buy real estate at market value when real estate could go down 20 or 80%? I mean, where are you going to find safety at? Life is about courage. Life is about risk. If you want safety, go find somebody that's courageous, that's willing to take a risk, and support that person. You don't get the choice of being an entrepreneur. You don't get the choice of doing your own thing and carving your own path if you want safety. It just doesn't exist. There is a risk to everything. It's why every Twitter post or LinkedIn thing about blockchain, people say, not financial advice. Do your own research, because there's risk involved in this stuff. And you have to either be comfortable with risk, with new technologies, or find somebody that is and support them. Now, the future of blockchain. Let me explain what's going to happen in the near future. There are 3 billion people in the world that don't yet have the internet. These 3 billion people make about $2 a day. Now, I understand there are parts of the Philippines that it would be bundled into that. There is no internet in that town, and that town is impoverished. They don't have means to make a great living. So it's very meaningful what I have to say right now. So if you're looking at your phone, I see everybody's looking at me for the most part. Thank you for your attention. I really appreciate that. Feel honored. If you're looking at your phone or a computer talking to somebody, this is a moment to listen to me. This is a very important moment. The future of blockchain and the way it's going to impact half of our world. Right now, everything is automated by centralized governments, centralized companies, and people with a tremendous amount of power. In the future, these things will be broken down. Governments will not need to be so large or powerful. Corporations will not need to be so large. In fact, if they want to make it, they'll likely have to decentralize on purpose. And individuals will not have the same pressure with all these decisions on their shoulders, because ideally they'll use blockchain technology to automate a bunch of processes through smart contracts that just enact the things that they set in motion as a leader. Now, the way this impacts the impoverished world, 2/3 of our world, the way it impacts them is that they're unbanked. Well, they'll have a way to exchange with one another. They don't have access to be an artist and a creative and reach a global society. Well, now it doesn't matter if they're a sculptor, a painter, a musician, a podcaster, you name it, they'll have an automation tool that will actually help them capture what they've created, put it on a marketplace, and automate the ability to monetize it. You know, through artificial intelligence, which is really machine learning, we have something happening to society. So many manual projects and jobs are going away. Now, it might be 5 years, might be 55 years, but eventually, there's not going to be a lot of things for human beings to do outside of teach, learn, create, and promote. Most people will make a living, our grandkids will make a living through either teaching, creating art, or promoting something. Other things that are not those likely are not going to last the test of time. We're going to automate things. So as you consider the future of blockchain and you think about this distributed ledger technology, we call it crypto for finance, we call it NFTs for smart contracts, art, music, digital assets, we call it blockchain or Web3 for kind of the everything, or the metaverse for how things are changing in terms of more immersive experiences that we own. And the final thing I'll say about this industry is right now, all of us rent our experience online. You rent your music from Spotify, you rent your movies from Netflix, you rent your transportation from Uber, you rent your lodging from Airbnb, you rent your community from Facebook and TikTok. The point of blockchain technology, the point of Web3 technology is to no longer rent, but to own. Your children that have built massive empires in Roblox and Fortnite, they now can do the same work and actually own it. Of course, I have much more to share, and I'll have the ability to do that at the end of tomorrow. Everybody, I salute you. I'm glad you're here. It's a joy to share with you, and I just couldn't be more proud of the organizers. Thank you, everybody.
See you next year.